I don't know what it is, but I cannot get the hat to fit on my fucking head correctly no matter what I do. So you want progress, you want to gain some muscle, you want to make acceptable, realistic gains that everyone notices is impressive itself. Well, here at Bodybuilding Coach that has no idea why, we have a simple patented regimen just for you to get the most amount of results in the shortest amount of time. We can't guarantee your safety or even your life, but here it is. We're gonna do 4 grams of gear a day, hundreds of milligrams of oral steroids a day, 12 IUs of growth hormone daily, and a couple thousand units of other various peptides daily. And please don't do this. I think we've learned by far this is not the way that you should be going about your bodybuilding career, but this is how far things have swung into the wrong direction. If you're new here, my name's Coach Colton. I coach a bunch of people, and the only reason I'm talking about this is because I coach a bunch of people. I kind of understand how people respond to certain things, and in general, pharmacology being one of them. And if you're new to the fitness industry, welcome. This is kind of what we do here. We either argue about someone being natural or not, or argue about the drugs that we're taking, whether those are right or wrong. It's pretty fun. And if you aren't new here, then you should be very familiar with something like the safer use models that used to pop up everywhere. These safer use models were used in relation to taking steroids or performance enhancing drug. And it had some good ideas. It was just prospered by some not so great people. Ultimately, what it was is you just take the lowest effective dose of whatever compound you're using, apply it to the point at which you get an effect, and then sustain that lowest effective dose until you further need an effect. Also realizing that most people wouldn't be professional bodybuilders or even successful bodybuilders at large, and so taking safer protocols would probably be advantageous to their life, relationships. I don't even know, man. I'm just gonna fucking take that off. And other things that it did was just use multiple pathways for anabolism. So there's several different things we can ignite in terms of cellular mechanics to get more anabolism. And that is really, IGF-1, growth hormone in and of itself, androgens at large, and many, many other things. Again, some unfriendly people, especially one with the name of a Vic, may have pushed this idea, making it not so acceptable at large for the bodybuilding and fitness community. Now, however, because this was pushed so hard as a safer use model, using lowest effective dose, slowing the results that you would get to a grinding halt, really making progress seem indefinitely hard to achieve, it wasn't a super favorable thing, so people started deciding that more was better and that what people were doing before the safer use model might have had something to it. So here we are with the pendulum having swung. Things are getting extreme, not just a little bit, but really extreme. I'm hearing people talk about protocols that I can't even comprehend comfortably putting someone on because it would just annihilate their health. Dangerous is becoming a necessity for any progress, not just maximize pro level 10% extra progress, but any progress. And this is highly dangerous because the people involved in those extreme side of things are thinking that that's what's required, because maybe the people who are at the pro level just haven't been talking about it. 4 grams, 5 grams, 6 grams of total androgen a week. And for those of you who don't know, who are new here, give me a second to explain to you.
Hold up. Let him.
Normal TRT administered by an endocrinologist is going to be somewhere around the ballpark of 80 to 120 milligrams at most. What we're talking about here is someone taking that dose of testosterone and then amplifying it all the way up to 5 grams. That is literally almost 50 times the amount of total dosage in androgens that a person would be using for a therapeutic dose. And they also assume that these pros are taking exorbitant amounts of growth hormone, exorbitant amounts of insulin, and exorbitant amounts of other peptides that are related to bodybuilding. Now, there's definitely some truth here. Trust me, I've talked to a lot of the bodybuilders who are in the pro circuits, and certainly a lot of them are taking what I would consider to be extreme protocols. Some are not. Some just have a genetic proclivity to be where they are without the need for extreme protocols, but a lot of them are. At least extreme for you and I. But here's the key differentiator. See, you and I are probably normal, average people, making a little bit of gear, training, and trying to be somewhat competitive in bodybuilding. But when we're talking about the top 5 at a pro level show, you don't really have many options to eke out an extra placing outside of just doing more of everything. More food, more gear, and more training. When you're already 280 pounds lean, it gets pretty difficult to pull levers to make more progress. And I think this is where the idea of extreme protocols comes from, and it's prospered downstream into the novice levels of bodybuilding and in general fitness at large. But you're asking yourself, Coach Colton, what is the right weight? Well, with most things, it's generally right smack dab in the middle. It's like the male taint, a perfect piece of anatomy where a 23 gauge needle can slide right in. Taking enough androgens for total progress, but not taking too much to exceed the need that you currently have. But also not taking too little to make a decent amount of progress, a very small amount of progress, but taking enough to get to your goals in time. There's a differentiating factor. Let's say someone wants to be 220. They're 5'7" and they're trying to compete in classic physique, which the cutoff is getting pretty close at that point. If they're growing at 200 pounds in their off season, about half a pound a week, and their body composition is staying relatively lean, and they're taking a baseline of androgens, let's just say somewhere around 850 milligrams with 6 to 8 IUs of growth hormone and maybe some other things dizzled in there. I would have a really hard time arguing that that person would actually need more to progress even more, because ultimately they're on track for their goals. They're gonna get them actually really, really fucking soon. Needing to push things exorbitantly high might not just be worth it. In fact, it could be an extreme detriment and even reverse the results. In many cases, in close friends of mine, currently, right now, have tried this method of taking extreme doses, and they ended up in congestive heart failure, something that I very seriously dislike. And honestly, it breaks my fucking heart, because they thought that they were just doing the right thing in what was required in the sport, but ultimately they were making exceptional progress at half of that dose or even a third of that dose. How you need to treat things is ultimately making sure that you're getting enough progress to meet the timeline of your goals, but not to overshoot that timeline, because there's a lot of downsides to taking too much gear. Oxidative stress just being one of them. If you want a surefire way to go bald, look older, and not generally be a good person, just increase the dose exorbitantly beyond what you need. You'll get it within a couple months. But if you take as much as you need to get the progress that you want on the time horizon that you need to get your competitive goals or your fitness goals, sometimes that's just making an income on some sort of social media platform, and that progress is happening at an acceptable rate, and you treat calories as king and training as queen, and you can maintain that course for a very long time, I'd have a really hard argument to drive saying that you might need to take more. So here's my 2 cents. This is more of an opinionated piece, and I'm sorry about it, but I think it's important. A lot of coaches that I even associate with have been talking about exorbitantly high amounts of androgens. And again, I think it's requirements at a certain level, but certainly not a requirement at a certain level as well. And I know that's a very vague statement, but it's hard to classify when you might need something like that and when you might not. But I would say as a general statement that 90% of people ever interested in bodybuilding will never need to approach doses at the levels in which people are talking about, being of which multiple grams is considered part of. Rather, I think those individuals shouldn't follow the safer use model because, to be fair, I think it's garbage. I think it limits people in a very, very tight cage and really doesn't show them their true potential, especially if they are somewhere outside of that safer use model where you are pushing a little bit of boundaries, but you're still checking your health, doing lab work, checking your blood pressure, blood glucose, making sure you're a healthy human being. And then you can make progress. But deciding that 600 milligrams isn't enough and immediately you need to go to 2.2 grams of androgens, well, that's where a wildfire starts. If you're interested in coaching by any means, it's not for everybody, I won't lie, and I don't mean to plug my stuff in these videos because honestly, but I do have a coaching program. It's called Blood Built Coaching. Me and my friend Adam, we work together to coach people to the highest level of being. You've probably seen our live Q&As we do every week by now, and we try to disseminate this knowledge one-on-one as we coach people. That's through competitions, strongman, strength athletes, bodybuilders or fighters, I think we do one of the best jobs in the industry in terms of mitigating negative effects while maximizing positive outcomes. And if you want to see how you can balance not safe for use, but not extreme, and make exceptional progress, it'd be a good place for you to try. Regardless of that fact, though, I think if you're moving forward in this industry and you're seeing a lot of people start to talk about these extremely high doses, caution yourself and look at their resume.